poor woman was forced to marry a man who couldn't open his eyes, a stranger she kissed for money and survival. But that single kiss cracked open a family empire, exposed corruption, and gave both of them a second chance at life. What began as humiliation turned into redemption, and the truth no one dared to face. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, what time is it and where are you watching from? Let's start. When Charles Whitman slipped into a coma, the board of Whitman Group moved fast. Within days, lawyers filled the corridors of St. Mary's Hospital arguing about signatures and power of attorney. His father, Edward Whitman, refused to lose control of the empire he'd built. If he's declared incapacitated, the legal advisor warned, his shares revert to the trustees. You'll be outvoted. Edward's jaw tightened. Not if my son is married. His holdings stay within family management. Find me a wife. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant, not love, leverage. 2 weeks later, they found Nora Blake, a nurse's aide who wiped floors more than she touched patients. She was known for quiet diligence and for the debt notices that came with every paycheck. Her mother lay in another wing of the same hospital waiting for surgery no insurance would cover. Tessa Grant, the family's PR head, approached her during a break. You're in a difficult situation, Tessa said, sliding a folder across the table. A simple ceremony. You sign, pose for one photo, and we pay every bill. You walk away. Nora stared at the legal paper. You want me to marry a man who can't even say my name? Think of your mother. It's not marriage, it's paperwork. And the kiss? A formality. Symbolic? Nora pushed the folder back. It's wrong. Tessa's voice cooled. Then your mother's file will be closed by morning. That night, Nora sat beside her mother's bed, listening to the oxygen machine hiss. The older woman smiled weakly. You look tired, baby. I'm fine. You found extra work, Nora lied. Something like that. She signed the next morning. The ceremony was scheduled for Saturday. Ethan lay motionless beneath white sheets, machines humming rhythmically. His face looked peaceful, too perfect, like marble carved for display. Nora entered wearing the borrowed gray lace gown, 3 sizes too large, pinned at the waist. She had never worn anything so elegant and hated every thread of it. Edward waited near the window, silver cufflinks flashing. Let's keep this efficient, he said. No theatrics. Nora met his eyes. You're making me kiss your unconscious son. He turned away. You're being compensated. Compensated? She almost laughed. You mean bought? His tone sharpened. Mind your language. Everything today stays confidential. Smile for the cameras, do your part, and your mother's operation is booked. 4 witnesses entered. 2 lawyers, a PR agent, a photographer. They joked nervously, pretending it was a wedding. Smile, Miss Blake, one of them said. Make it look romantic. She wanted to spit, but she stood beside Ethan instead. His hand was cold. A small card near the bed read, Patient, E. Whitman, head trauma, vegetative state. The words felt like a sentence carved into stone. The chaplain recited mechanical vows. Do you, Nora Blake, take Charles Whitman to be your lawfully wedded husband? She hesitated. Everyone stared. Tessa's whisper sliced through the air. Say I do, now. Nora forced the words out. I do? The chaplain turned to the motionless man. And do you, Charles Whitman? Edward interrupted. He does. A few papers rustled. A pen scratched her name beside his. Cameras clicked. Someone even chuckled. Well, that's commitment. Nora's chest tightened. She wanted to run, but Tessa gestured sharply toward the bed. The kiss, she said. Nora froze. Must I? It's required for the image. She leaned forward. Every laugh behind her felt like a blade. One man whispered, this is absurd. Another snickered, at least she looks devoted. Nora ignored them. Her hand shook as she braced herself on the edge of the mattress. Up close, Ethan looked human again. Stubble on his chin, faint freckles near his temple, lips slightly parted. She whispered, you don't know me and I don't want your money, but I need my mother to live. Forgive me. Her eyes burned. They think this means nothing. I hope you'd hate it too. Edward's voice cut across the room. Get it done. Nora inhaled, trembling. All right then. She closed her eyes, leaned down, and pressed her lips softly against his. The room erupted with sound. camera shutters. A nurse's gasp. A sharp beep, beep, beep that didn't belong to any rhythm they'd heard before. Nora jerked back. Ethan's monitor flashed red. His pulse spiked to 120. "What happened?" someone shouted. "Did she touch something?" "I didn't," Nora cried. Doctors rushed in. One checked the wires. Another examined the patient's pupils. The monitors calmed again, but a buzz of disbelief filled the room. Edward barked, "Silence. Not a word leaves this floor." Tessa whispered, "What if the media hears? They won't." His eyes darted toward Nora, and she'll remember her contract. Nora's heart pounded. She looked at the man she'd just kissed. His face unchanged, yet somehow different. For a moment, she could swear she'd felt him breathe against her mouth. She stepped back slowly, hands shaking. The laughter had stopped. No one dared speak. Only the monitor's faint blip echoed through the sterile air, steady and alive. That heartbeat, so small and unexpected, shattered the silence and the lie they'd all agreed to live by. For the next week, Nora lived on borrowed hours. Each morning, she was escorted through the back entrance of St. Augustine's, signed into a visitor log, and led to Ethan's room. Cameras waited outside the door. Edward called it brand recovery. "Smile for 10 seconds, Tessa whispered on the first visit, then hold his hand. People love devotion. Nora bit her tongue. People love lies more. "Watch it," Tessa hissed. "You're being paid to look grateful." She obeyed because she had no choice. Her mother's surgery was scheduled, the bills prepaid by the Whitmans. Every time Nora reached for Ethan's hand, a nurse took photographs. At first, the monitor stayed steady, then small jumps appeared. Tiny pulses that matched her touch. "Coincidence," one doctor said. "Emotional stimuli," another guessed. Edward called it marketing gold. By the 5th day, tabloids carried headlines. "Miracle Wife Revives Coma Heir." Nora's phone filled with hateful messages. "Gold digger, witch, parasite." When she walked to the bus stop, strangers shouted from cars. "Hey, Coma Queen, how's your husband?" She kept her head down. Inside the hospital, nurses whispered louder each day. One evening, she overheard them outside the ward. "Why him? Because she's poor and desperate. She's lucky. I'd kiss a corpse for that paycheck." Nora closed the door before they could see her tears. She looked at Ethan. "They think I'm disgusting," she said softly. "Maybe they're right. But I didn't do this to be famous. I just wanted my mom to live." His fingers twitched. Barely a movement. Maybe an illusion. Still, she caught her breath. "If you can hear me, I'm sorry." 2 days later, the story broke wider. A hospital intern leaked the marriage contract to a journalist. The headline screamed, "Coma wedding, a corporate cover-up." Crowds gathered outside the gates. Reporters camped on the lawn. Edward summoned Nora to his office. "You'll make a statement clearing my family," he ordered. "I won't lie again. You'll say the wedding was mutual. How can a man in a coma give consent?" He leaned forward. "Because I said he did." His tone made her flinch. "You don't care if he wakes up, do you? I care about stability. That's what keeps thousands employed." "You mean power," he smiled thinly. "Call it whatever helps you sleep." She stood. "I don't sleep anymore." Security escorted her out. By evening, her contract was revoked. Her hospital pass, disabled. She wasn't supposed to return, but she did. At midnight, Nora slipped through the side entrance, heart pounding. Ethan's room was dark, except for the blue light of the monitors. She sat beside him. "They're using both of us," she whispered. "You as a puppet, me as a prop." For the first time, she noticed a scar near his temple. Thin, recent. She traced it lightly. Beneath the skin, the bone felt uneven, as though something had been repaired too quickly. She checked his chart. The accident report listed minor cranial contusion, but the X-ray showed surgical screws near the base of the skull, fresh, shiny, not part of the initial procedure. Her stomach turned. Someone had opened his head again after the crash, but why? Before she could process it, footsteps echoed outside. She hid behind the curtain as 2 men entered. "No leaks, understand?" one whispered. "It's done. The sedative is stable. If he wakes, the contract collapses. Then keep him under." Her hands went numb. They weren't treating him. They were suppressing him. After they left, she pulled out her phone and started recording. She filmed the chart, the monitors, the surgical scar. "If anyone ever sees this," she said softly, "tell Charles Whitman they tried to keep him asleep." The next morning, she met a reporter in a cafe across the street and showed him the video. By evening, the footage aired nationwide. The headline changed again. Heir held in induced coma to protect father's control. The hospital exploded with investigators. Edward denied everything, shouting that Nora had forged evidence. But when authorities examined the machines, they found secondary sedative lines hidden beneath the primary drip connected to a private supplier owned by Whitman Group. A nurse confessed that the orders came directly from Edward's office. The accident had not been purely accidental. Ethan's car's brake system, installed from a company subsidiary, had been under recall for months. Edward's lawyers had suppressed the report. His son's crash had nearly destroyed the firm until the coma turned the scandal into sympathy. Now the lie was exposed. When police arrived, Edward sat silently, staring at the wall. "All I wanted was to protect the company," he murmured. "Everything I built." One officer replied, "You built it on your son's silence. He was arrested for medical tampering and fraud." Tessa fled the country before indictment. Ethan was weaned off the sedatives under supervision. For days, there was no sign of change. Nora stayed outside the ICU, not as wife, not as nurse, just as someone who couldn't walk away. On the 9th night, a tremor ran through his fingers. Then his eyes opened, slow, confused, but alive. Doctors rushed in. Nora covered her mouth, tears spilling. He looked at her blankly at first. "Who are you?" She laughed through sobs. "Long story. You'll hate it at first." Weeks later, when he learned the truth, he asked to see her privately. "They said you kissed me," he said quietly. "I didn't want to. I know. Thank you anyway." He reached for her hand. "They say you woke me." She shook her head. "No, the truth did." Months later, the Whitman empire had become a lesson in business schools, how arrogance could sink an empire faster than bankruptcy. Courtrooms still echoed with Edward Whitman's name, though he no longer attended the hearings. He served his sentence quietly, stripped of titles, his once glittering logo now a synonym for greed. Nora watched it all from afar. She no longer wore a maid's badge or a nurse's uniform. The hospital board had offered her a full-time position as patient liaison, a role created after her story forced them to review ethics policies. She spent her days guiding families through paperwork, listening to their worries, reminding them to ask questions. "Always read every line," she'd say softly, sliding a form across the counter. "Even the small print, that's where people hide their lies." Her mother, now healthy, liked to tease her. "You act like a lawyer, not a nurse." Nora smiled. Maybe both. Life settled into ordinary rhythms. Some nights she walked past the same hallway where she'd once kissed a stranger for money. The lights hummed, the scent of disinfectant unchanged. She'd pause by the door, Ethan's old room, and whisper, "You made it." Then she'd move on. Ethan, meanwhile, rebuilt himself from the wreckage. The inheritance he once dreaded had vanished, but freedom had taken its place. He'd donated what remained of his trust to victims of the company's fraud. "My father's name hurt enough people," he told reporters. "Let mine fix at least a few." When he first asked to see Nora again, she refused twice. "I don't want another spotlight," she said. He answered, "Then let's meet in the dark." They met in a quiet cafe by the river. No cameras, no contracts. He was thinner, paler, walking with a cane, but his eyes held a clarity she hadn't seen before. "Do you still hate me for what they made you do?" he asked. "I never hated you," she said. "Just everything around you." "Then maybe start around me again," he offered gently. She laughed. "You're terrible at apologies." "Then I'll keep practicing." Over the following months, they spoke often about small things: her mother's garden, his therapy sessions, the new policies the hospital implemented. There were no declarations, only trust quietly growing where lies had once bloomed. One afternoon, he visited her office carrying a sealed envelope. "Open it after your shift," he said. Inside, she found a single photograph, the one from their forced wedding. Blurred, the flash too bright. Across it, he had written in pen, "Let's replace this with a real memory someday." She stared at it for a long time before whispering, "Maybe." By spring, the story had drifted from headlines to documentaries. Strangers still recognized her sometimes. "You're the woman who woke him up, right?" Nora always smiled politely. "I'm just the woman who stopped pretending." Ethan began volunteering at the hospital, reading to long-term patients. When Nora passed by, he'd greet her with a grin. Still refusing fame, he teased. It's unnecessary. Are you still chasing it, she asked. Yes, but only yours. She'd rolled her eyes, but never told him to stop. One evening near sunset, he found her in the garden outside the recovery wing, the same place they'd first spoken freely after the trial. He said quietly, "You know what's strange? The kiss that ruined us both ended up giving us our lives back." She nodded. It ruined the wrong things, like what? Fear, silence. He took her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally this time. No cameras, he said. No witnesses. Good, she replied. I want this one to belong to us. He leaned closer, hesitant, seeking permission. She met him halfway. The kiss was simple, human, nothing to prove, nothing to hide. When they pulled apart, the hospital lights flickered on behind them, soft and steady. For once, Nora didn't feel like an outsider inside those walls. She felt like someone who had finally reclaimed her name. Her mother used to tell her, truth always costs, but it pays in peace. That night, as she walked home beside Ethan, the city humming quietly around them, Nora realized peace wasn't silence, it was honesty shared. She never called what happened a miracle. She called it correction, the world setting something right by accident. And in that correction, two people who had started as evidence of exploitation became witnesses of recovery. It wasn't the kiss that changed everything, it was what came after, the courage to stay when the world wanted her gone, the strength to forgive without forgetting, and the choice to build love not from wealth or pity, but from the wreckage of truth. Sometimes the world calls it a scandal when it's really a rescue. If Nora and Ethan's story moved you, don't scroll away. Hit like, share their courage, and comment truth always wins to honor every soul forced into silence. Subscribe for more grounded, emotional, real-life dramas like this one.